Welcome in, everybody, to another episode of 410 Sports Talk. I'm James Haskell, along with my co-host Glenn Martin. And Glenn, we are here within our bi-monthly video of whether or not Antonio Brown will be a Baltimore Raven, because it feels like it's about every other month that we talk about this. In the offseason, probably every month. Recently, there's video surfacing, of course, of Lamar Jackson, Hollywood Brown, and Antonio Brown working out together, which looked like, based on the paintings on the wall, to be at a gym that Antonio Brown frequents. I'm assuming it was down in Florida. They had a huge mural of him painted on the wall. Might be his gym. I don't know.
His personal gym, yeah.
Right, exactly. But they were working out together, so of course speculation started to swirl around whether or not he will be a Baltimore Raven. So Glenn, I want to pass the mic to you here. Give us your take. I don't think it's ever changed, but I'd like to know and see if I'm surprised. Will Antonio Brown be a Baltimore Raven?
Well, let me start by saying this. I mean, let's just look at the current construction of the roster, okay? Because we know that they just brought in Sammy Watkins, right? So they got Watkins. That's one spot. We saw Hollywood, the other member of the Ravens on the team. He's not going anywhere. So Hollywood's in there. Then we just brought in Duvernay and Prochet last season as rookies. So we assume they're locks on the roster, right? So we're up to 4. Miles Boykin still on his rookie contract.
A third-round pick.
Exactly. So as much as I may have been disappointed about his performance last season, I think Jimmy was as well. There's no way he's gone, right? I mean, there's just no way they cut him. That's just not what they do. So
right.
At most, the Ravens would keep 6 wide receivers at most. And there's been years where they kept 5, especially when you consider their offense and the way in which they run it. That's 5 locks on the roster. Then you consider they have 2 futures on the team that a lot of people are high on. I just saw an article recently about Deion Kane and that he might impact the Ravens this season and end up being a producing player. But that's one, Deion Kane. Then Benjamin Victor, who a lot of people are high on, is another guy who's a futures contract right now. So there's maybe one spot available, and that spot may be filled by either one of those 2 who are already on the team in some capacity. So I just look at it from that standpoint. I go, there's no room for him. And then you consider that most Ravens fans are hopeful that they still turn to the draft and look for their number 1 receiver that is
that could be their 6th spot right there. So, sorry, go ahead.
No, I'm just saying. So even from a numbers standpoint, let's just take, no matter the name, even if it is on Antonio Brown, who I think we both agree is a future Hall of Famer based on his production on the field, there's just no room for another guy. I mean, even if you tell me both those guys, the futures are just, they're just bodies and they're going to cut them. Okay. Well, that means you're not going after a single one in the draft, because if you draft one, you're not cutting them. And you're telling me that they're guaranteed to keep 6 when they've shown in the past, more in their recent past, that they'll keep 5 and they'll go heavy at running back or they'll go heavy at tight end. Yeah. So there's no, I just don't see from a number standpoint the whole. And so, that's just not even talking about Antonio Brown and who he is and what he does. I don't see a space for him, Jimbo.
Yep. Yeah. So there's a lot of reasons this doesn't work. And the primary reason, absolutely what you said, there's just not space. Eric DaCosta, just like Sarah Ellison said, has drafted, since his tenure as the official GM of the Baltimore Ravens, has drafted the most wide receivers in the NFL.
Yep.
So that means that if we sign a 6th wide receiver that we consider a lock on the roster, the 5 that you mentioned, then if Antonio Brown signs, he's pretty much a lock unless he pulls the Oakland Raiders again. Yep. But that means that we're, like you said, we're drafting none at all, which is statistically not going to happen. We're going, whether it's 1st through 7th, we're probably going to draft a wide receiver. And so that's number 1. But the other portion of this is, aside from just the roster numbers, the money. We just talked about Justin Houston and the potential of them bringing him in. And I don't think they're done at edge. I think they bring in 2 edge guys, and you got to sign the rookies, and you got Earl Thomas's litigation hanging over your head. So I don't think that Antonio Brown comes in at a discount. He's already had an impasse with the Bucs. He doesn't want a $1.1 million deal. Antonio Brown wants that money, and I get it. He's an incredibly productive player on the field. And then the other portion of it, of course, all the off-field things that we don't need to go through them because we know them. But we just got done talking about how great of a human Justin Houston has been has been known to be throughout his time in the NFL. Same thing with Calais Campbell. Same thing with, the guy right next to him, Brandon Williams. Same thing with Lamar Jackson is the most lovable superstar that I've seen, that we've both seen in a long time. He's so easy to root for. He doesn't seem like a Raven to me. He's a very me guy in his game, and he's not a great person off the field, apparently, based on what we've seen. And then this is the last thing. We have one guy on the roster over 6'3", at wide receiver, at wide receiver. And that's Miles Boykin. So we already have Hollywood Brown has a very similar body type to his cousin. Devin Duvernay is another short guy. James Prochet, another short, quick, in the box type guy. I understand they're not Antonio Brown, but we don't need another one of those types of guys in the mix. Like, that's not, we need to open up the catch radius for the target radius for Lamar Jackson. We need to get a big physical guy that's going to make their presence known in the end zone. I don't think we need another smaller guy. I don't think that fits us in any way. So to me, I squash it immediately. I think that they're good friends. I think that they hang out. Obviously, there's blood relation between Antonio and Hollywood. I hope that Hollywood learned from some of Antonio's mistakes, and I hope that Antonio has learned from some of Antonio's mistakes, right? For the sake of his career. But I say that there's a 100% chance that we sign Justin Houston. There's a 0% chance that we sign Antonio Brown.
Yeah, just look at the most recent press conference from Eric DeCosta saying that we want everyone to leave our locker room saying that is a good guy. You can tell me all you want about how he kept quiet in Tampa Bay and helped them in the Super Bowl and on the field. See, I slightly disagree with your take on the field. I think that he's an anything you want type of receiver. That's how good he is on the field. He's a possession guy. He's a home run threat. He's excellent with the ball. And on the field, there ain't many better. But at the same time, I've seen, when we done shows in the past, I've looked up his list of transgression, and it is long. And it is disturbing when you watch some of these videos that he's put out on social media and the language he uses in front of his children. The way, it just doesn't look good. And there's just no chance that this Ravens organization, the stuff they've dealt with in the past, and most recently with Earl Thomas, and it's shown what one guy can do to a locker room. And look how they got him out of there. There's no way the Ravens could guarantee that he would be on his best behavior and not, turn to social media at a slight disagreement between him and coach or at a perceived knock because he's not getting enough targets. This guy was unhappy getting 160 targets in Pittsburgh, and he was unhappy. So how can we expect him to be, happy with half of that? There's no way. Lucky. If he's lucky, exactly. So there's just no way, there's just no way the Ravens will bring a guy in who's that volatile and that unpredictable. When you look at like Mike Tomlin couldn't keep this guy under control. Right. And I think Mike Tomlin is one of the most respected coaches in the league, and a guy that really doesn't seem to take a whole lot. He couldn't keep him under control. So I think that one stint in Tampa and this perception that he was able to, get it all together doesn't erase that long list of transgressions that he's done over the past, however many years, decade. It's long. If you go look it up, but believe me, don't just they're crazy. Go look up at all that he has done, and it's an extensive list, and I just can't wash that away because he was quiet for a few months in Tampa Bay while being led by the GOAT, and surrounded by a championship team. So yeah, I don't think there's any chance he's in Baltimore. If that player, even if his that caliber of player on the field, and you erase all the off-field transgression, I still don't think he's coming to Baltimore because of the numbers, because of the lack of cap space. There's just no room for him. So even if you erased all that, but then when you add all the off-field stuff, there's zero chance. I agree with you, Jimmy. Zero chance that he's in Baltimore. And look, guys warm up and guys train together in the offseason all the time. Players on competing teams, where fan bases hate each other. Guess what? They're friends from high school. They're friends from college. They have, the same agent, the same trainer, the same personal coach. There's guys that are across the league that work out all the time. So this is not out of the norm. It's not, oh man, they're working out, they must be conspiring to get him on the team. No, this happens all the time across the league. So just because they work out does not mean he's any closer to being a Raven.
Yeah, absolutely. And just to end with this here, I agree with you 100%. And for those fans out there, they're going to be upset, and also going to say, just like you said, Glenn, that he was quiet and he was a good soldier in Tampa Bay. You said it. He was playing for Tom Brady, number one. He's playing for Bruce Arians, who also knows him. They have a history.
Yep.
Right. And then to me, it's about leverage with Antonio. As soon as he's, I feel like and this could be all of us, I don't know, but in the situation, the phrase, you give him an inch, they take a mile, right? He didn't have an inch last year. He was on a very small deal. He was suspended for half the year. He was not the number one receiver. He didn't have guaranteed money that he could hang over their head so he'd get away with things. He'd have a multi-year deal. He had no leverage. They would have cut him and not lost a second of sleep, right?
Yeah. He was their number 3 at best.
Right, exactly. And so his next deal, and sometimes number 4, even to Scotty Miller in some games.
Yeah.
So, his next deal, he wants more leverage. What does he want? He wants more guaranteed money. He probably wants more than 1 year. He wants to be the feature wide receiver. Exactly. So all that means more trust, more leverage for him. And so that's a concern. If you bring him into Baltimore, where you have a young quarterback who's a leader, but young, you have a young wide receiver core, Sammy Watkins is our oldest wide receiver at 27 years old, a young team in general. Man, I don't see it happening either. So I hope all of you out there are not insanely disappointed.
Yeah.
But if I had to bet a lot of money on it, Kevin Malone said, when you have 10,000 to 1 odds on anything, you take it, right? I'll take those odds, right? Like there is a 0% chance that he signs with the Baltimore Ravens. Let us know your thoughts. Leave all your comments below. We love interacting with you guys, so make sure to do so. Give us a like and hit that subscribe button. We'll talk to you guys soon.
See you.